This wasn't a launch. It was a leak. And what's now emerging quietly, without a press release, might be the most important technical signal we've seen from McLaren in years. Because the first images of the MCL39 concept have been exposed. Not through fanfare. Not with studio lighting. But in fragments. Controlled angles. Unbranded surfaces. And if the details are accurate, this isn't just a new design. It's a declaration of intent. A silent one. But one that could ripple all the way to 2026. Because McLaren hasn't just built a new car. They've built something no one else was expecting. There's a difference between a leak and a signal. And what we just saw with the MCL39, it feels more like the second. The images didn't surface through fan photos or grainy footage outside the factory. They were clean, composed, studio lit, angles carefully chosen, details visible just not explained. And that's what makes this moment feel different. Because in a championship where every team is juggling two calendars, finishing one regulation cycle while bracing for the next, a concept like this shouldn't exist. Not yet. It's too early to be this confident. Too early to reveal this much. And yet, here it is. A car that looks not rushed or experimental, but settled. And that word settled is what's bothering people in the paddock. Because most 2025 designs are expected to carry tension. They're compromise machines. Stopgaps between the end of one aerodynamic philosophy and the beginning of the next power unit era in 2026. But McLaren? They've just shown a concept that suggests they're not transitioning. They're already living inside the next philosophy. The surfaces are controlled. The packaging is tight. And there's no visual drama because the drama isn't on the outside. And if that's true, if what we're seeing is a system in disguise, then this leak wasn't for the fans. It was for the other teams. At first glance, it looks conservative. But that's a trap. Because once you examine the leaked images frame by frame, what's not there becomes more revealing than what is. Start with the side pods. They're not just tight. They're aggressive. Sculpted into a taper that eliminates redundancy. No oversized ducts. No safety margin. This isn't a team leaving room for error. It's a team behaving like the error's already been solved. And that's not normal. Even the front suspension geometry appears to have shifted subtly away from last year's configuration. There's a change in pickup points. A vertical alignment that suggests optimized airflow prioritization over ride compliance. But the biggest clue? The floor. There's a deceptive smoothness in the floor edgework. No aggressive strakes. No obvious turbulence generators. Nothing to disrupt the airflow in a chaotic way. It suggests that McLaren isn't trying to fight air anymore. They're trying to coordinate with it. And when a team starts designing like that, it usually means one thing. They've stopped thinking about components in isolation. They've started designing across systems. This isn't just a chassis. It's a logic platform. And that's when you realize. This might not be a car designed to respond to the driver. It might be a car designed to predict. To anticipate thermal shifts. To modulate electrical load in real time. To prevent stress before it happens by never allowing the system to enter the danger zone in the first place. And that isn't something you see on the surface. It's something you infer from what's been left out. Here's where the story fractures. Because everything McLaren has done so far appears completely legal. And that's the problem. Because legality implies a framework. And frameworks can be exploited. The FIA regulates components. It regulates measurements, power output, energy recovery ceilings. But it doesn't yet regulate behavior. At least, not behavior driven by code. And that's what insiders are starting to suspect. That the MCL39 may not just be a new car, but the front end of a system McLaren has been developing quietly. A real-time performance control layer. Not traction control. Not anything that directly influences driver inputs. But something far subtler. A network of feedback loops. A car that knows how much energy it's about to release. And how much thermal cost that carries. And decides, mid-corner, to delay deployment to preserve balance. That's not illegal. That's not even mentioned. Because the regulations don't yet contemplate a car that behaves preemptively. And that's where the gray area forms. Because when the FIA can't define the boundary, teams are free to operate in the shadows. As long as the outputs stay within limits. As long as no sensor flags a violation. What the car chooses to do internally is essentially invisible. That's the twist. McLaren hasn't built a car that breaks the rules. They may have built a car that evades the need for rules altogether. A car that acts like a regulated machine, but thinks like an autonomous one. And if that's true, then the rest of the grid isn't looking at a faster car. They're looking at a different category. What's making teams nervous isn't that McLaren has suddenly found pace. It's that McLaren isn't talking. No technical debriefs. No reassuring interviews. No behind-the-scenes content, no soft marketing language about taking it step by step. Just a leak. Clean. Controlled. Quiet. And when a team goes silent, it's rarely because they're behind. Because here's the truth. If the MCL39 was an underdeveloped chassis or an incomplete idea, the team would want to talk. They'd explain away the risks, lower expectations, buy themselves time in the media. But they haven't done that. Instead, they've dropped images of a car that looks years ahead in packaging philosophy, and then disappeared. That's not arrogance. It's confidence. And for the rest of the grid, that's terrifying. Because silence implies intent, that the plan has already been executed, that the pieces are already in motion. And worst of all, it implies that what McLaren has built isn't copyable. You can mimic side pods. You can adapt floor designs. You can even reverse engineer airflow. But you can't copy a system you can't see. You can't clone integration between software and thermal load balancing if you don't know what's connected. And the FIA? They're not sure how to regulate it. Because no one has officially asked for clarification. No one has stepped forward with a protest or a technical question. Because doing so would mean admitting that McLaren might be operating in a layer the others aren't even modeling yet. It's not illegal. It's not banned. It's just unaddressed. And that's exactly where the most dangerous innovations tend to live. In the space between regulation and recognition. If McLaren has truly stepped into a new development philosophy, one that links thermal management, energy deployment, and aerodynamic behavior through predictive logic, then the consequences won't wait for 2026. They've already begun. Internally, the MCL39 could redefine how drivers interact with the car. Because in a machine that stabilizes itself before instability happens, the driver is no longer a problem solver. They become a rhythm keeper. Precision, consistency, timing over aggression. Which is why Oscar Piastri might quietly emerge as the perfect operator. Piastri doesn't overdrive. He doesn't panic when grip fades. He's ruthlessly efficient in corner entry and unfazed by invisible balance shifts. In short, he's predictable. And in a car that's constantly optimizing itself, predictability becomes an asset. That raises questions for Lando Norris. Still the team's flagship driver. Still fast. Still immensely marketable. But does that matter as much if the car starts syncing better with a calmer, more system-oriented driving style? What happens when McLaren starts comparing stint degradation, thermal drift, energy feedback loops, and the data keeps pointing one way? Not because of talent gaps, but because one driver fits the system more naturally. And outside McLaren? This kind of silent performance evolution could break the rhythm of the entire 2025 season. Red Bull is building for 2026, yes. But their system still relies on extracting max performance from visible tools, downforce, power, cornering stability. Ferrari is optimizing its final pre-reg car. Targeted upgrades. Reliability. Mercedes? Still recovering from missteps in their aero philosophy. But McLaren, if they've moved into systemic logic-first development, aren't designing for the car. They're designing for the ecosystem. Every test lap. Every temperature shift. Every deployment pattern logged, refined, looped back into an evolving performance algorithm. And once that's in motion, you can't catch up with parts. You need to change how you think. The danger isn't that McLaren has a faster car. It's that they might be first to align driver, chassis, and software into something that behaves more like a learning system than a traditional race car. And by the time that becomes visible on track, it's already too late. And now, the images are out there. No press release. No technical rundown. No launch event. Just a leak. And the paddock is still pretending not to care. But behind closed doors, you can feel it shifting. The unease. The second glances. The technical directors asking more detailed questions during FIA briefings without mentioning McLaren by name. Because when a car like this appears, quiet and fully formed, the problem isn't just what it is. It's what it implies. It implies prior knowledge. It implies trust in data no one else has. It implies a plan that started before the others even picked their design direction. And that's the real danger. Because now the FIA has a decision to make. Not today, not publicly. But soon. Do they intervene? Do they request clarification on systems that haven't officially been questioned? Do they risk triggering a new political standoff just months before 2026 rewrites everything? Or do they wait? Hope the car doesn't perform? Hope the system breaks down under real pressure? Because if it doesn't, if this car performs as calmly and consistently as its design suggests, then the sport will have to admit something uncomfortable. That McLaren didn't break the rules. They found a space where no rules existed yet, and they built there. So what happens now? Nothing official. No protests. No rule changes. Just silence. And a growing awareness that this might be a turning point. The MCL39 may not be the fastest car on day one. But if it's what we think it is, if the systems are live, then it's not racing the other teams anymore. It's waiting for them to understand what just happened. And by the time they do, McLaren might already be gone.